Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mark Bell's Power Project Podcast. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Free Sleeve. Nsima, ice has been around since forever. It's been a known thing in recovery. What makes the Free Sleeve so much better than traditional ice?
You know, it's funny. I think back to my college days of playing soccer, and even a few years back, whenever I'd have to use ice, I'd get like these like ice pack block things. I'd put it in a paper towel and I'd sit down on my couch and I'd have to ice each individual knee. Or if my elbow was hurting, I'd have to sit there and ice my elbow. It would like leak all over the place. Water would get on the ground. It was the most frustrating experience ever. And then when I finally found out about the damn Free Sleeve, like I was just able to put it on. I was able to walk around. I was able to do the things I needed to do before bed. And it's just so smart. I don't know why nobody thought about this before, but hey, we got it now.
Yeah. Don't be like college Nsima. Drop the straps, wraps, and ice packs and upgrade your ice packs today by heading over to freesleeve.com. At checkout, enter promo code POWER25 for 25% off your order and free shipping on all domestic orders.
All right, let me take half this mind bullet.
You won't?
Yes,
Cheers.
I will. Cheers.
Can't take half.
Oh. Well, I took 2 or 3 before jujitsu this morning. Not 3 potions.
Oh, God.
3 of, not 3 potions, 3 pills. So I've noticed that when I do pills and I take a full potion, it just hits different. like
a
popping pills.
I feel it for a minute. I feel it for quite some time. So
like smoking and then having an edible. It's going to hit different.
I've never done that before.
How was your Pop-Tart? Did you eat it?
I'm savoring it, and it's incredible.
Oh, you're eating it slowly.
Yeah, well, I got a little sidetracked, but no, this Legendary Foods blueberry.
Yeah, shout out to our peeps at Legendary Foods. They also they up the protein.
No way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they upped the protein on them. I got 15 grams of protein. I think before it had like 5 or 7 or something. So
here's the amazing thing, though. What other type of any kind of food has 15 grams of protein but only 150 calories?
Yeah, right.
It's extremely hard to find that low calories with that much protein.
Is that a Pop-Tart or a chicken breast?
But right, yeah, like this is super, man. Yep, this is amazing, and it tastes incredible.
It's legendary.
Yeah, I haven't had the blueberry yet. I had the brown sugar. I think that's the one we had. The brown sugar is amazing. It's my favorite flavor of oatmeal. So
strawberry's good too.
I was thinking about the keto bricks today because I got a bunch of them in my pantry. I was like, this keto brick guy is a genius. We got to have him on the show. Because,
really do. Yeah.
Like, who has the balls to make a thing that's 1,000 calories and it is in the shape of a fucking brick?
Yeah. I mean, eating a brick of fat, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It doesn't have much protein in it. I mean, it has some, but it's a brick of fat.
It's good, though. Like, that's the thing. That's
I'm going to sell a brick of fat.
Did he ever say, do you know what spurred him to make that? Because, like, where was the need?
I think, right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, people don't need like an edible brick, first of all, right? But I think
it's so good.
I think it came from the type of thing that he uses in the product. And I think it's just solid, like the cacao butter or whatever it is. Just whatever that stuff is. It's kind of solid like that, like a brick.
Yeah, I ain't complaining. I love it. It tastes amazing.
Yeah,
so it's just straight fat.
Anything that gets me closer to a peanut butter cup that's not a peanut butter cup, I'm all for it. Because that peanut butter flavor is amazing.
Oh, yes, it is. The peanut butter's the best. It is the best.
We're talking about being fat, but on the show today, we're going to try to concentrate on talking about lean. We're going to try to get lean for the entire year and stay there. And just be shredded all the time.
The rest of your life.
That's right. We're talking about getting lean and then staying there and then like what that means and why some people do it and what is speculated on YouTube about people when we see people that are really lean and they're lean year round. A lot of times people are inferring that they
are on steroids.
What? That's a bunch of bullshit.
A plethora of them.
So I guess let's start there and because there's a lot of things to talk about here, but let's start there. Why do you think the speculation, if someone's like, I don't know, let's just define being lean, and we'll just say for a male, it's under 10%. So let's say a guy is consistently under 10%. He's consistently single digits. Why do people think that person's on steroids?
Oh, yeah. So, it's not just being lean. It's being lean, but also having some size on you because that's impressive. right, to people. And when a guy is like typically lean and he has a good amount of size and his muscle bellies are relatively full, that typically doesn't feel good. It like, you know, especially like, let's talk about, you know, getting ready for a bodybuilding show. When you're stage lean, you feel like crap. Bodybuilders do not stay that lean year round. They don't. But 10%, some people just chill there. And for a lot of people, when people make these videos, like natty or not type videos, one of the big things the reasons that they say, oh, this guy's definitely on drugs is, well, he's always shredded and he's big. You can't be big and shredded all the time. Like you just can't do that.
You either bulk or you get lean, and it's understandable to be shredded for some pictures, and it's understandable to be big a couple months later. But to stay lean like that and kind of big, that's where people are like, red flag.
Yeah. And also the full muscle belly thing along with that is something that a lot of people say, because people are like, oh yeah, you can be lean and kind of stringy, but you can't have full muscle bellies and be lean.
The capped shoulder.
The shoulders are another telltale sign. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like whenever I would hear that aspect of it, like you can't be lean and full, and natural. I've just wondered like, why? Like I used to kind of understand it, because when I got ready for my first shows back in like 2013 and I was really lean, I felt really crappy. And then, even for my second shows or whatever, when I did those second, third, when I was that lean and I was eating that low amount of food, I didn't feel good. But after a few years, when I gained some weight, slowly lost weight with all the activity I do and been able to stay lean, I understand how it can be done. And now I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of bullshit.
Right.
So
I think it depends on like, for each individual person, like what they're kind of living within, you know, like, what body size and what leanness are you like staying with? Because if somebody was previously consistently, you know, over 20% and now they're consistently, you know, 10% and they're consistently bigger, it's a little easier to kind of start to assume that they may have done something, because that's just really hard to overcome, especially if they did it in a short period of time. But if they did it over a long period of time, that might make some sense. It really is hard to change like who you are. Like if you're always 20% body fat, switching and being like 18% body fat and 16% body fat, it's not out of the question. It's just gonna take a pretty good amount of work. But for you to get down to like 10, your body's going to be, we talked yesterday or the other day about how your body wants to keep pushing back towards that same body weight that you normally are. Yeah. And I think the same thing can happen with your body fat percentages. So it just takes a monumental effort. And I think in the long run, I think that's what we're talking about here with these videos where people are like outing other people. I've never once clicked on any of them because I don't care. If I don't really care, I definitely don't appreciate somebody lying about their story, because there are people that are listening that really truly want to know. Yeah. And I don't really think that's fair. To not mention anything, I think is fine. Like to not say one way or the other, I think that's fine. And I don't think I don't think anyone should feel like they have to say all their business and lay it out there. But I do think that's the best way, is to try to be as honest as possible. When I first started losing weight, I did an article about it, and when I wrote about it, I was like, I used some thyroid medication in the while I was doing this, and I thought that was really important to put in there. And people are like, "Oh, you're suggesting thyroid medication to people; it might mess up their thyroid." I was like, "No, I was just saying this is what I did, and I want to make sure that you understood that, so you didn't think I got these results in a different way, because I'm trying to tell you how I got these results by the way that I lifted and by what I ate, and also by other things I may have taken in or consumed." And I wanted people just to know the story. Unfortunately, maybe not everybody wants to know the story. Maybe they want to conceal it and say, "Hey, like, I did this on my own. I did it fairly easy." Maybe that's the message that they want to be able to get out there. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing though. Like, I feel like if you're putting information forward, you should be upfront with what it is that you're doing. But the thing that kind of is weird when I see people make these videos, and it's just, we were talking about it yesterday, you're saying, okay, well, you can't be lean and big year round or whatever. And you have all these reasons why this person is on drugs, right? But you're kind of just feeding into what a mass audience wants to believe. Because if I was a guy that was starting off and I've just started lifting, I just started getting into all this stuff, I have a goal body that maybe I want to try and achieve. And then I have this really, ripped guy or whatever telling me, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Because I'm not even close to there yet, I am going to want to believe all of that. It's going to feed into my, my, first off, limiting belief of myself, but then it's also going to put me in a place where I'm just like, well, shit, if I can't look like that, and this guy's saying that if I want to kind of maybe look like this guy or maybe be in big as lean as this guy over some time, I have to take drugs. Shit, maybe I should just, forego all the time it takes to get bigger and stronger and just start doing something now. I think, like, if I was a teenager and I saw all that, I wouldn't just put in the time,
Right.
But getting back to the topic, I think that for an individual to be able to get that lean and stay there for a period of time, there is first off a lot of training that's involved in the beginning to get bigger, to get stronger. But then when you get lean, like I was in the past, I wasn't able to be at 9, 10, 11% without feeling kind of crappy. But it took time staying at that body fat percentage and performing at that body fat percentage. Like I do a lot of jujitsu, I do a lot of lifting. Initially, I felt beat up all the time, but over time, I was able to adapt at the way I would be able to perform and the way I would feel. And now at maybe 9 to 11% body fat, I don't feel like crap at all. I can eat quite a bit of food. I feel great every single day. But it's very different from the 9 to 11% in the past. Right. So it's something that takes time to do, but it doesn't mean that an individual or myself are on PEDs.
What about your output though? Like back when you did,
out.
Yeah. Back when you did reach those single digits, I mean, you weren't doing jujitsu. You were mainly just focusing on bodybuilding, right?
I was focusing on bodybuilding, and all the cardio that I was doing was like to get on stage. And the only times I was that lean was when I was getting ready to be on stage. I wasn't doing enough, like when I was only lifting, I wasn't doing nearly enough work to stay at that body fat percentage, right? But it's only when I started doing jujitsu, where you burn a lot of calories and you have a lot of output, that first off, it doesn't necessarily even feel like a lot of work to me. It doesn't feel like cardio, but it is. But it's just really fun, and I can do that consistently. And that's one of the big reasons why I'm able to stay lean. If I wasn't doing jujitsu, I wouldn't be able to be this. I wouldn't want to be this lean.
You do about maybe like 10 hours of jujitsu a week, or do you think it's a little more than that?
So usually an hour and a half to 2 hours a session. 4 to 5 sessions a week right now. It used to be 5 to 6, but 4 to 5 right now because of COVID. So it's usually around 8 to 10 hours a week.
What about like studying it and looking into it more and like watching videos and stuff? Do you do that hour or two every week at least?
Oh yeah, probably a little bit more. Probably watch matches and stuff. And
think about it a lot.
Yeah.
It's like heavily on your mind. My point here is that, not everything is like performance enhancing driven. Not everything is always just from taking steroids. Not everything is always from somebody having taken a shortcut. Like if I think about like Eddie Hall and where he was, they did a documentary on him a while back, and they showed that he had kind of a 9-to-5 job, and that job was really like in the way of him. It was literally in the way. We can use these obstacles and say, it's kind of in the way of me being a pro. But for him, it literally was in the way, because once he got rid of it, he won the World's Strongest Man title. And he became the first guy to ever deadlift 1,100 pounds. And I think some people might look at that like, oh, he just got on tons of shit when he went from this point to this point, and that's how he won. He must have just got on tons of stuff. Maybe he, did a bunch of wild, crazy things before his lift, and he was able to get his lift. And they think that it has to do with those things. And it's like, no, he actually he took his hobby and he figured out a way to sink every single thing that he had into it. And the PEDs for him, they were always there.
Yeah.
For you, the way I look at your situation is you're like a professional jujitsuer in a way, but you have taken the other measures in your life to provide that for yourself, where you do personal training and you do stuff on, or you do online training and things like that, so that you can afford the time to put into it what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not always, I think people just, they want to think that there's always something suspicious going on. Something strange is going on. You got some sort of special advantage that no one else can do. My point here is that anyone can figure out a way if they really want to. If the reason why they want to do it is pulling them strongly enough, they will quit their job. CT Fletcher has that great interview that he did in Super Training, where he talks about being an iron addict and what it means. And he talks about a woman being addicted to drugs. He's like, they'll give up their money, they'll give up their body, they'll give up their own child, for that. And obviously this situation is different. It's, you're not gonna be that, hopefully you're not that obsessed with what you're doing, but sometimes people get really tied into their hobby and it really defines them. But I just think it's kind of bullshit for people to think that it's about steroids or PEDs, and that's this huge shortcut to transport you into being the best. It certainly won't make you the best. It certainly can make you better. So that's important to note. But there's a lot of other people that already pulled that card too. So now you're just thrown into that competitive field now.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people, I know of a lot of people that take stuff, they don't look good. Like they don't even look like they're on drugs. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not saying that those things don't make a difference, but it's not something that, like you said, is going to transport you there. But, people are probably wondering, okay, so then if it's not impossible to be lean year round or lean and big, then how do you get there? I think there is the amount of time that it takes to train, get bigger, get stronger, so that when you actually do cut down, you're able to look good when you're leaner. I think one of the problems is when you start training, initially you want to look like that person. You want to have that end body, right? Whether it's being 12% body fat, having abs, and being kind of big, that's what you want. But it takes a substantial amount of time to get big, maybe cut a little bit here and there. It takes years to be able to get there. So the goal initially, when you start training for the first few years, actually for the first many years, shouldn't be to get lean and be like that all the time, because you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to handle it. But I think it's very possible. You don't need to be doing jujitsu. You don't need to be training 10 hours of cardio a week. I know guys that their form of fun cardio is cycling. I know that's a funny thing to use right now, but literally cycling on right? Cycling.
Took me a minute.
What's cycle, bro?
What's cycle? But cycling on a bike, they find that fun. They're bodybuilders. I think a guy that I know, Chris Elkins, people also think he's on a lot of drugs, but he picked up cycling and he really enjoys it as a form of cardio on the side. But my assumption is that he doesn't, again, look at it as work. It's not like you're getting on a Stairmaster every 5 days a week for an hour. That for most people isn't that sustainable. For some it is, but for most it's not enjoyable. But at a certain point, when you can add in some cardio to what you do, and you're able to adapt to being that lean and performing that lean, then you're good. I don't have a desire to, over time, I want to be gaining muscle, but I don't have a desire to bulk. I have no problem with my physique whatsoever that I would feel okay, let's bulk. I don't feel that yet. When I do, I might do it. But currently I'm happy with where my physique is.
Right. It's hard for people to get to that point. And I think that that's what people are trying to do. And I think, to your point, people are trying to have that end build, which is usually a leaner look. And it might be in their best interest to spend the next 10 years. I know that hurts, but it might be in their best interest if you're 14 or even you're 20. You might take from 20 to 30 to really work on, and not like you would work on it the whole time, but you would work on getting big. You might get big and then go maintenance, get big, go maintenance, and move around a little bit so you're not gaining a ton of body fat, but you might have to spend some time there. And I think a lot of people don't really spend any time there. People rarely mess around with trying to bulk and trying to be big. I think there's that's a big sacrifice for a lot of people. They get really excited about being lean and the look you have, and When you're lean, you just wear less clothes and you feel great. Everything you put on like looks good to you. You're like, oh, that's cool. Like that fits well. As soon as you get big and fat, everything you put on kind of looks, you're like, that does not look good. You're like, that does not look good. You just keep changing and changing. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to settle for nothing's going to really matter because I'm built like a fucking refrigerator at that point. But these are some of the things that you'll have to go through if you're trying to get a physique that is filled with muscle that looks, anything like a bodybuilder. That's why they do that. That's why they bulk. That's why for yourself, did you have to spend a lot of time? Like, did you have to bulk for 6 months or 3 months at a time, or how did you manage it?
So outside of competition, I'd immediately try to put like a bit of body fat back on.
Baddie fat, I like that. Trying to put on some baddie fat.
That fat's a baddie.
For the podcast.
Yeah. No, like when I was focused on bodybuilding and stepping on stage, there is no way like that I could build more muscle while staying really lean, or build the amount of muscle I was trying to look to build. So I think my first show, I was at like 218 or 219, right? When I went,
see if we can try to bring up a little bit of pictures or footage or something of the Natty Professor.
There's footage on YouTube on the old Break the Bar channel, and there's footage from when I went top 5 at WNBF Worlds. That's like one of my first YouTube videos on the new channel. And
218. And you were like 19 years old, 20 years old?
Yeah. When I did my very first show, 2014, how old was I? 22?
This one? Or?
When is the first time?
That was like my...
When's the first time?
What year is that? Okay, yeah, so I did my first show in 2013 then.
Damn, you're dark.
Yeah, this was in 2015. And right here, I think I was like probably 235 to 237. So this was the year that I was continuing to like... This was a show in the middle of the year. So I got down to 228 in my last show that year, which is WNBF.
Dude, what's up with your legs, bro?
For reals.
Yeah, my legs are my strong part. They're my strong part.
Your legs are awesome.
Yeah. But
like those aren't legs. Those are like legitimately wheels. When you take a step and they like move around like that.
Yeah. But no, in the off season, especially like natural bodybuilders, you cannot try to stay lean. You have to actually put some body fat on and focus on performance. Like my off season was about 1.5 years. And then that's when I started trying to get ready for a show again. I can't compete, or I couldn't compete every single year. So right here, I was like 238, 237. And yeah, that was 2015.
It's just silly, because a lot of times you watch bodybuilders or you see a bodybuilder or someone's talking about, oh yeah, here's how I looked on stage. And they're like, oh yeah, I was like 170, or I was and you're just like, oh, that's awesome. But then you're thinking, well, the guy just doesn't weigh that much. You're a big person.
Yeah.
You're fucking big.
There's a lot of weight on me. But yeah, if you're, would you like, when is the first time that you like really remember, other than somebody just kind of like messing around? When's the first time someone accused you? Oh, when I was 16.
And at 16, you were already lifting for how long?
3 years. The reason why I started lifting at 13 was because I played soccer since I was 6. I told you about this. I got something called Osgood-Slaughter.
Oh, yeah.
So Osgood-Slaughter is like this thing that goes on in your tendons when you're growing too quickly. So I couldn't...
That's from all the growth hormone your mom had.
From all the GH my mom was giving me. Yeah. She pumped me with drugs. But, like I have 2 bumps in my knees. So that's when I started lifting because I couldn't do anything else. When I got back on the soccer field at 16, I was like 210. It's like 210 to 215. And my teammate, that was the first time he got mad because I tackled him.
You said I had a big ass on stage? Man, dude.
Well, I also,
that thing was trailing you.
Like that's genetic. My family, we all got big butts. But yeah, that was like when I slide tackled him and he was like, the fucking Nsima, he's probably on steroids. And the coach was like, shut up, Tyler. His name was Tyler Maltby. We have the same birthday. So I remember him specifically. But that was the first time where I was like, really? Okay.
Like, damn.
Like, yeah. But and then when I started playing soccer again, I dropped some weight, but I was still lifting throughout that whole time.
Did you look pretty big on a soccer field?
Yes.
And people were like, what the fuck's up with this guy?
No. There were a lot of tournaments that we went to when parents like legit went to the organization because they wanted to find they wanted to make sure I was my age.
Yeah, I was going to say they thought you were the coach.
They thought I was much older than I actually was in like U16, U17. They thought I was in my 20s or some shit. And I'm serious. Like they were really trying to do that because there are some people that take their birth certificates and do that stuff so they can compete in younger.
That's wild.
So yeah, parents really tried to do that. But that's the thing. It's like I had years of lifting under my belt. You know what I mean? So that's the only reason at this point that I'm able to just stay here. And I think that's what people need to understand, that you really do need those years. You know what I mean? You can't do that off the bat. That can't be your goal 4 years into lifting. Like, yeah, you can have a goal of getting a six pack or getting lean, and that's cool. But if you're not necessarily the happiest with how you look or you want to get bigger, don't expect to try to stay that lean as you're doing it.
People have a really hard time like swallowing the pill of like, hey man, like, I'm sorry, but people just start out in different places genetically. You know, they do.
Yeah.
And you don't want to use the genetic thing as an excuse either. And I never want to bury anyone's hard work in, because they have genetics. But we've talked many times on this podcast about, unfortunately in this world, there's some people that start out and they're wealthy and they kind of grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth and they have a great education. They have parents that are there all the time. They have what looks to be this wonderful life that's well organized and there's not a lot of chaos. Then a lot of times you have the exact opposite of that. You got child abuse, sexual abuse on children. You have all kinds of really foul and screwed up stuff. So we can see that really clearly, and we could say, oh, okay. Well, these guys over here, a lot of them really, were deprived and had just a shitty upbringing, and that's going to really impact them later on. They weren't set up good, and they were, if we're starting on a track, unfortunately, maybe they started out, the other kids were on lap number 2 and they didn't get started running yet. Right. Mm-hmm. When it comes to genetics, for some reason, that one is a tricky one, and it's tougher for people to embrace and just say, hey, you know what? That guy's got a bigger dick than me. Good for him, bro. You know what? That guy's got bigger arms than me. That guy can bench more than me. Like, as soon as they see that, they are so defensive and so angry, but at the same time, a lot of times it's the stuff that we, a lot of times it's going to take a while for Nsima to get over that one. It's interesting because we also put that stuff up on a pedestal sometimes where you have just the total mutant of mutants, like a Shaquille O'Neal, who can move and was athletic and was fucking gigantic. And he was just able to dunk on no one's ever seen anyone that size before. And again, you can't say that it's just genetics because, Shaq obviously had to work for it. And there's a lot of things that went into him being one of the all-time greats. But there's a genetic component to this stuff where people just start out further. You're not 5'3", and you're also not 6'8". So if you were 5'3", things would be way different. If you were 6'8", things would be it would just be harder if you were anything other than like what you currently are. Same thing with me and same thing with anybody else.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. Real quick. Cause I want to talk about that. We had this podcast yesterday. But something yesterday was said that was super cool, but I need to go into his tangent about the dick thing real quiquick. Because
here we go. Congolese.
Once you said that, man, I remembered something from college because I played soccer.
Hold on a second. This is going to get really... Anyone who's listening, they just adjusted their earbuds. They're like making sure they're poked in. They're like, wait, what?
All right. So I played soccer freshman, sophomore year of college at Sac State. And we had this teammate. I won't name him because he'll know who he is, but everyone who was on that team knows who I'm talking about. Dude was just unreal in terms of just that, like he was, like it was crazy. Actually, Jessica knows who I'm talking about because she went to Sac State too. But not that she did something with him, but it's just that person was known.
That's what I always say.
That person was known.
If someone has like a giant dick,
everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Like giant dick.
Jess didn't do anything with this person. She just knew who he was. So obviously, we take showers. Like that was the first time that's ever happened. I was kind of shocked first, but then I got used to it on day 2. I'm like, all right, penis is everywhere. That's okay. Cool.
You were shocked by his.
I was shocked by his most definitely, but I wasn't used to showering with a bunch of men.
Stuff like that is really funny and interesting because like people just take their stuff off and they go and they do their thing. But once in a while, there's somebody that's just got like a horse cock. And somebody like you can't help but be like, bro, like what's going on? Like it's not something that's not talked about.
Mark.
Oh no.
Flaccid was probably like this long. Flaccid. Shaker cup. Not this would be freaky pick, but like he was like that, just like walking around, just chilling, right? So I'm in my locker.
I wouldn't own pants.
Yeah.
I sit down in my locker because they had these lockers where you can sit down. I was on my phone chilling, right? And I guess like this was just something he wants to pull a prank on me. So I was looking at my phone and I hear some shit, but I'm like, whatever. And then I look up and I see just this big body midair, hips shifted to the right.
Oh, no.
And he was getting ready to try to swing and dick slap me.
Oh my God.
Sitting there.
We almost lost you.
Yo. And then I was lucky because I saw it coming. I was just like, oh.
Probably heard it.
I just heard this go by my face. I'm like, dude, come on. Why are you going to do that to me? And that was just so funny to me. But God dang. That guy.
He probably had just the most confidence like all the time then.
Yeah, I love the dude. He's awesome. We're still homies. We've known each other for a long time, but didn't know he's packing like that. It was scary.
When it came to taking off pants, he was had no problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely not. But to the point about genetics, right?
Sometimes it's just like that.
Sometimes it just be like that. You reminded me about that. It was great. Remember our podcast yesterday where what was our guest name? I'm so bad.
Oh, Bickman,
Dr. Bickman. He doesn't like being called Dr. Bickman, though.
No.
Benjamin
Bickman. He was saying that, not everybody can get to 600 pounds. Like some people just have their fat cells some people like normal.
The maximum fat threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
They just develop more and more and more fat cells. So they can get to 600, 700 pounds morbidly obese. Whereas most people, their fat cells just get larger. They don't continue to gain more fat cells. So in that sense, where some people have the ability to get over fat, why would we think that some people don't have the ability to get much bigger? Why some people, like you said, basketball players?
Have you seen? Yeah. Have you seen people? Have you seen people lose their kind of leanness and dryness from going on PEDs before if they competed naturally? Because I've actually seen that with amongst some friends. They weren't bodybuilders, but pro wrestlers and stuff. And one guy in particular that I'm thinking of, he looked like the chart that they have at the chiropractor. The chart that has all the muscle on it. I mean, he looked just crazy. Like there were striations. There were striations in every muscle group, which usually you only see on a professional bodybuilder or somebody prepping for a show or something. But
you're saying he was on?
No, he wasn't on anything.
He wasn't
at that point, and it was very obvious. There's this kind of change, and he got a lot bigger and thicker. But it was interesting to me. So I actually think, and maybe some listeners might know more about this that are really into bodybuilding. But I think a natural guy can actually look. They're not going to be as big, so they can't get as freaky. I don't believe, or maybe they can. Maybe that's what we're talking about here today, right? We don't really know what that limit is. Nobody does. Nobody knows that limit. Not a doctor, no scientist, nobody. But I think that natural people can appear to be leaner. They can get really, really shredded, and maybe it has something to do with hormones or something like that. I'm not sure.
No, that's something that I've noticed as far as like when you look at the top level natural bodybuilders and how lean they are. They have to they get leaner. They achieve a leaner look. And when you look at, I can't compare them to the top level NPC.
See, you can pull up like Alberto Nunez and some of those guys.
Alberto Nunez, pull up any of the 3D Jam guys. Alberto, Jeff Alberts. There's a lot of those. Look up Jeff Alberts, because that's a guy that he's lean, but he's also pretty damn big, and he's 40 something years old. You know who Jeff is? Do you know?
No, I don't know who he is.
Well, yeah, Andrew can pull him up.
Should get some of these cats on the show.
Yeah, no, Jeff is great. He's super knowledgeable too. And
who's the young black kid that is considered the best natural bodybuilder? Natural bodybuilder at the moment.
He's here in SAC. No.
Oh, does he live here?
He lives in Sac.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he lives in Sacramento. I know him. He actually won WNBF Worlds the past 2 years.
Fuck, man, look at these guys' hamstrings.
Yeah,
and stuff.
but he was actually, people have accused him, or there's a video that was made of him that he's not, but he gets randomly drug tested all the time.
What does Alberto Nunez weigh in this video? Do you think approximately? Any idea?
My guess is 160.
Right. And he looks fucking awesome. Like everyone's always so addicted to hearing the weight.
Yeah.
That body weight. If you gotta be 160 to look like that, I think it's worth it.
Hey Andrew, if you can look on Instagram, look at Sam Okunola.
Let me close this.
That's it.
You know Sam? Yeah. There's Sam Okunola. And then there's this other guy.
Do you got his handle?
Yeah. Sam. Yeah. SAM. OKUNOLA. Sam
I wanted to
Okunola.
touch upon something that we were mentioning a little bit earlier about social media. I think social media kind of screws a lot of this up too, because you want to look lean for social media, and that can be addicting in and of itself. And if you're a newer person coming into this and you want to be, you want to look like the next best bodybuilder, it's going to be really tough if every day you're taking pictures with your shirt off and showing your abs, because you won't have any time to progress and get big.
Yeah. There's 2007, there's 2019. He's not on anything. And people will find that really hard to believe.
But look at 2007. I know it's not a great picture in 2007. He looks great.
He looks great, man. That's the thing. Like, you can tell that he, he probably played some sports and stuff, but he was in it. Right. Jeez. So I think like you mentioned, though, I think social media kind of messes with it for a lot of people, because you're not allowed, we've talked about this, you're not allowed to be ignorant. Like especially if you're starting out, whether you're starting out when you're 15 or you're starting out when you're 20 something, you see all of this and you look at you live for a year and you expect to be close, or you expect to be even somewhere close to that, but you're not.
Take a long time.
Right? It's easy to understand why guys can feed into what some of these individuals making all these natty or not videos are saying. Like, it's very easy to want to believe that, because you're like, God, I want that. I've lifted for a year. I've lifted for 2 years. I don't even look anything close to that. Okay, well, they're on drugs, right? And that's, to me, I just think it's.
I used to have kind of a rule, or like a barometer for being able to like size somebody up on whether they're on them or not. And again, I want to point out the fact that I don't care. If people are on them or not. It's the lying, I think, that can be annoying and frustrating.
Yes.
And we are all in a business where we're trying to make people feel good, really, if we break it all down. And I don't have any problem if someone's like, hey, if I shoot this stuff in my arm, it's going to make me feel good when I work out, because I'm going to be a little bit stronger and be a little bit bigger. I'm kind of all for it, actually. Like go for it. Sounds great. Yeah. I'd also say learn a lot about it and stuff like that. But I think everyone get so caught up. They get so caught up in trying to maintain this like shredded look all the time.
Andrew, go to that photo. You see the two guys. So that's Kendall.
Shit. Yeah.
Kendall won.
He's from Sac, right?
He's from Sac. He's currently
on the left.
Yeah, on the left. He won. Sam got second place. These are two of the top natural bodybuilders in the world currently. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just, I think that the one of the big things is as an individual, you need to focus on like your process. You need to take in all the information, take the information from these individuals, but then just try to apply it to yourself and give yourself the time you need. You can't necessarily compare yourself to them. I can't compare myself to you in terms of what you've been able to do in business. I can't say, it's because Mark had this, and this. Right. I can just look at the principles you use in your daily habits, your daily life, how hard you work, the type of people you hang around. Right. And I can try to apply that to myself. It's going to take a fucking while. Right. But I have that goal of getting there. Right. Right. I know not everyone's going to be able to get that big, but I guarantee that if you train for long enough and you take some of their principles, right, and your principles, you'll attain a body that you're very proud of. Right.
I also think a lot of times people are, there's a whole other side of this too, right? That we haven't even touched upon. People are just really lying to themselves really bad, and they're a lot of times the people on YouTube and stuff and the comments and how fired up and even the reason on why these videos exist in the first place is because there's a lot of young people on there that want to see somebody outed. They kind of want to see that, because they're like, I told you, like they were talking to their buddy. It's I told you so type of thing. They were talking to their buddy and they were like, there's no way that guy's natty, and then speculation comes up and like, I told you so. Like, you can't get that big. It's impossible. Yeah. But that same person that's saying that, they don't have, they don't have their diet organized. They don't have their life organized to be able to be tunnel vision to go towards their goal. Anyone that has their mind set up on being tunnel vision towards their goals, once they start down that journey, they don't talk that way anymore. No, you don't. It's kind of like the guy who's the Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who's not going to get in a fight in the streets because it's just like it's completely ridiculous. There's no what am I going to? I'm going to go break someone's arm. Like it's just it doesn't make any sense. Like I'm just not gonna. That guy's probably cool. He's not going to fight because he doesn't feel like he needs to like prove himself. Yeah. So I think just people need to just understand, like you said, there's so many principles. Those principles don't disappear because you take steroids. Those principles don't disappear just because you take a diuretic or you take a thyroid medication or it doesn't really matter what it is that you take. Those principles of showing up and getting that work in every single day. I mean, I know people on both sides of it and I see hard work, being done by both, and people just make a decision. I lifted a lot, for my bodybuilding prep. Shout out to my boy Andrew, because we lifted together a lot during that time. But I also lifted with Ryan Spencer a lot. Ryan Spencer doesn't fucking care. Ryan Spencer is 160 pounds, squatting like he's squatting like 405 for like 4 sets of 6 reps. And it was actually great for me because I'm just trying to keep up with the guy. He's tiny compared to me, right? He's, as far as I've known him forever. He's natural and he still wants to beat me. He doesn't care about my body weight. We're not comparing ages or we're not comparing anything. All that we're comparing is that weight that's on the bar. He sees that I might lift more than him. He's pissed. He's like, I want that for me. And what is he going to do? He's not going to be pissed. He's not going to say anything negative to me. He's going to train harder. He's going to figure out a way around it or past it. Or he's going to make up for it when we deadlift because he's a real savage on the deadlift. And so I think it just kind of reminds me of a lot of the people I've lifted with over the years, whether they were on stuff or not on stuff. They were just like, okay, well, I'm just not quite there yet. Or many have been well beyond anything I've ever even done. Yeah. And when that was the case, I was always like, fuck yeah, this is great. Probably jiu-jitsu is probably the same. Somebody comes in and they're like super strong and they're really good. You're like, okay, today's going to be tough, but this is going to be an amazing opportunity to learn. I remember when Eric Spodo came through the doors and he benched 675 for a triple. And we were going back and forth on the bench, and he did 2 plates, and I did 2 plates and 3 plates. As soon as he moved 3 plates, and the weights didn't make any noise or anything, I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Didn't make any noise. Think about that for a second. Holy shit.
There's no clanking, and these were metal plates. These weren't, bumper plates or whatever. It was just so crisp and smooth. It looked like a machine was moving the weight, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, all right, what's the deal? Because he came in like he didn't say anything. He just came in and he just trained with us. And I was like, what do you bench? Like 600? He goes, oh, easy. No shit. I was like, okay. I was like, well, if he does 600 easy, maybe he's like near like world record strength. We go back and forth a little bit more. 405. I think I did 500 for a triple, and he goes to like 585 or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not able to do that, but I continue to work up and weight, and I just use like boards, and I was just doing whatever I could to try to just to still be involved with him, Yeah. We get done, and he goes, no one's ever done that with me before. And I said, what's that? It's like, no one's ever like stayed on the bench with me. He's like, usually I start lifting more and they take off. I'm like, no, man. I'm like, this is like I'm like, this is one of the greatest days of my life. Like, I love this. You're just shoveling dirt right on top of my head, and I'm enjoying myself. You're a lot better at this than me. I don't know why. You don't know why your arms are so fucking big. I don't know why your forearms are bigger than my biceps, but that's just what you're blessed with, I guess, and sometimes that's just the way shit goes. It's sometimes just that way. I don't have any idea why he was that strong. I mean, he took stuff, but so did I. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. It's really crazy. I think one of the things that people that listening should of this, the way we should shift our mindset is those videos are in and of themselves pathetic. And I understand, because the individuals,
natty or not videos,
they're quite pathetic. And let me tell you why. The individuals that do that stuff are saying that their whole message is, I'm trying to save you from lies. I'm trying to help you be more realistic with yourself. I'm trying to help to show you what's possible. And I agree with all those sentiments. There's no reason to believe an IFBB like Kai Green or Phil Heath. Like, don't expect to try and even get close to that with or without drugs, because their genetics are just like out of this world. But when you see a lot of these, them making videos of people that are sizable and kind of pretty bigger than average, right? If you feed into that, you're just honestly feeding into a very type of defeatist ideal. Not to, like you said, don't try to be honest with yourself. Like, if you see somebody that's just crazy massive, right? You can't tell yourself, okay, I'm going to try to be that big in 3 years or whatever, or 5 years. Maybe you won't be that big. But when you start feeding to this idea of, oh yeah, so there's all these reasons why this person's on drugs, even though we don't know. There's all these reasons why this person's on drugs, though we don't know. The whole thing that you're going to have in the back of your head when you're training, when you're trying to get bigger, when you're trying to get stronger is, shoot, the only reason why I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to bench this much, I'm not able to deadlift or do this type of stuff in my performance is because I'm not taking drugs. And sooner or later, you're just going to do it. You're never going to give yourself the time you need to put in the work and get bigger. You're feeding into a pathetic mindset. And I'm not calling you pathetic. I'm literally saying, though, if you personally feed into that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're holding yourself back from the progress that you could make, rather than if you just put the blinders on, take good information, change your habits, get your diet in check, work out consistently, and be patient with yourself, because there's so many other things that people are patient with in their lives. But for some reason, when it comes to their body, when it comes to building strength, when it comes to building muscle, they want that shit now. It's pathetic.
Mm-hmm. What about if on those like natty or not videos, they're pointing out somebody that's, in their opinion, on something.
Yeah.
But that one person that they called out is like selling a protein and saying like, oh, this is the reason why.
See, I think that they're like, that's where I can understand this stuff.
So that was just plain devil's advocate.
But that's where,
you know what I mean?
I agree.
I can't pronounce that word right now, but yeah, that's why.
Yeah. You see, that's the thing. I guess I don't focus on other people. So I wouldn't take that approach. Mm-hmm. I get that. If someone's out here saying this protein's why I got bigger, that's just not true. No supplement is what got you bigger. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So the mindset shift you're talking about with believing or not that they can get that big with or without steroids is the same thing that you want them to approach like this supplement that they're talking about.
Yeah, like we just had this conversation about supplements yesterday on the podcast. Supplements are not going to make or break you in terms of getting bigger or stronger or whatever. They're going to add to it, but they're not going to allow you to get from 200 to 220 pounds. Like, it's not, that's just time and training. You can do that without the supplement. Exactly. So I can understand it, but I just think honestly, the approach, I get it. It gets clicks, it gets views, it's entertaining, but whenever I look at it, I'm just like, and it's just kind of, again, it's just kind of pathetic. Like I can't look at it any other way.
That's why I never even checked any of them out. I'm like, I don't really care about, why they think somebody's, on them or not. Something I was going to mention earlier that I just, for whatever reason, didn't get to, was this barometer that I have. And if somebody's 220 and they are under 10%, that is very difficult to obtain. It doesn't mean that they're on stuff, though. It just means that that's very difficult to get to. So I always felt like that's a good gauge. Now, again, you can't apply it to everybody. We've talked earlier a little bit about basketball players. First of all, they're really super tall, so that starts to shoot my theory, like, you know, right in the foot, right?
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people that are under 10% that are 220, but you're just going to be few and far between the ones that are going to be natural, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's just there's people that are always going to be kind of on that outer edge of what's possible. You know, I think of the movie like Unbreakable or Glass, or, you know, those kind of movies where it's got, you know, this one guy is always sick and he's always breaking his bones and everything, and you got this other guy who has never been sick in his life, right? And that, I know that's a like kind of superhero movie, but that's, the world is like that too. People are like that. People sometimes they grow up and they're allergic to milk, and they're allergic to gluten, and they're allergic to like every single thing except for like rice, you know? And then you got this other person over here that can eat anything and they're totally fine.
Yeah. Or
what about people that are like 105 and they're like, yeah, I smoked, you know, since I was 21 or whatever. You're like, how the fuck is that possible?
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way it is sometimes. And I think, you know, just knowing that no one can tell you how much you can like learn or know or lift or grow. No one has that ability to put a cap on you like that. There's obviously going to be like a limitation. I mentioned the other day, like, you can't all of a sudden wish you were 6'4", you know, if you're 5'10", and you're just stuck. That's just where you're at. But within reason, you can manipulate and augment just about anything. You can be stronger than you are today. You can be leaner than you are today. You can be bigger than you are today. How much? Nobody knows. I decided at 25 years old to start to use PEDs. But when I was a kid, I had a lot of influence. Both my brothers took them. My uncle took them. Most of the people in the gyms that I was going to, I believe they took them. I didn't know for sure all the time, but it was, you know, it seemed like it was pretty obvious. There was no reason to do a natty or not video on those guys. Environment, you know, growing up in those gyms and kind of seeing that and even kind of hearing people talk about it here and there, like very openly. And they're getting ready for a contest or something, and someone, you know, misses a lift or whatever, and somebody else comes over and it's like, hey, you know, you want to try this with your training, and they'll mention a bunch of training stuff, and the other guy will be like, hey, well, you know, what about throwing in, you know, a couple weeks to the meet? What about throwing in a little Dianabol? Like, it was just conversational. It wasn't like, hey, bro, like, I got this shit. It's illegal, you know? It was nothing like that. It was like, hey, like, this is what you love to do. This is an opportunity for you to come through on what it is that you want to do. This assists you a little further. I don't think there's anything more powerful in the world than your belief in yourself. And within reason, you got to be reasonable. Within reason, I think you should do most of the things that are going to align with that you can. Like, if you can take something and it can help you with your belief system a little bit, because it makes you feel better, puts you in a better mood, helps you be a little bit bigger. I decided it at 25 that I wanted to do that. And at 25, I was probably 215, 220.
How long have you been lifting up until that point too, by the way? Yeah,
forever. Yeah, since I was like 12.
So 13 years.
Yeah, since I was 12 years old, I was already lifting. I was already pretty strong. I wasn't like crazy strong, but I was strong. I was actually strong. I did a 500-pound floor press at Westside Barbell before I ever touched anything. Weighing about 215, 220, somewhere in that range. My issue for me, and one of the deciding factors, was A, I got into pro wrestling, and B, I had a hard time because I just didn't, and this is lack of knowledge. I just didn't know. I didn't know how to do it. And so I just kind of was at the end of the line for me because I didn't know what else to do next, because every time I would try to get a little bigger, I would get fatter. And that had to do with me, like, just not having good discipline with the food. I didn't really, at that time, I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about like the type of food that I should have ate to be. I didn't understand that the type of food I ate to be lean is the exact same food I should have ate to be big.
Yeah.
I never knew that. There wasn't like YouTube and as much stuff out there. So I made that decision. Someone like Nsima, he kept navigating and kept finding and kept moving, and you kept making progress. And you're like, at some point you're like, I don't really care to do it. I don't need it. And maybe you grew up in an environment that didn't have it around.
Yeah, it was my mom, and like that, like in terms of parenting, that's it. She would take me out on my soccer games, and she was always watching what I was doing, and I was too focused on other things in terms of the gym and lifting, or the gym and soccer, to even think about that type of stuff. So for me, when I started like understanding that, at that point I was already too deep. Like I was already happy with the way I looked. So I didn't find a need. I didn't. But I think that's where I guess that's where my issue lies with a lot of this stuff, is because I look at the young guys that are watching these types of videos right now, and I think of my mindset when I was a kid. I was lucky that that type of stuff wasn't there, because I think if I was 16 or 17 years old getting into my lifting journey, and these guys, like they're saying, I'm doing this so that you know what's achievable. I'm trying to, save you from the lies. But if I was hearing that stuff, that would rush me into that path. And I see a lot of people rushing into that path because of the belief systems that these individuals are sharing with them. And I think that's, like, you say you have good intentions, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's fucking up a lot of people in the long run, not the individuals who are sharing information that you think are taking drugs.
I also think it's important to point out that steroids they're still illegal unless you're in Oregon, and they can be extremely dangerous. And when I say dangerous, some people, will be like, well, no one died from them. Well, thank God no one dies directly from them necessarily, but there are people that have taken lots of them, lots and lots of them for many, many years, and have negatively impacted their heart. There's a lot to look at, and that's for maybe a different show, or maybe tune into somebody else's channel that talks more about that. But steroids they're no joke. They're a drug. They're an illegal drug. If you are ever considering doing them, you should do so with a ton of caution, and you should communicate with multiple people about what that process is going to look like. What's the exit strategy? You're going to get big and strong, and then what are you going to do? Because I've been on them since I was 25. So do you want to you want to make that commitment? And I was very fortunate that I was able to come off of them and have Quinn. But if I didn't, that would have been heartbreaking to not be able to have a second child and not be able to, I can't imagine my life without her. That would suck. And that happens to people sometimes. Sometimes their fertility is messed up. There's all kinds of just shit that you can get yourself into with steroids, especially the ones that you can take some like testosterone, and that can have a big impact, and testosterone is safer than some of the other ones, but that's not usually all that people take. People usually take a bunch of different stuff. They don't really know much about any of them. And they just kind of haphazardly go through it, and they run out 4 weeks into it when they're supposed to do it for 12. They don't have the money. It's like, it just gets to be a big mess, and it's a huge, huge deal. I also see a lot of women getting pushed into doing it. And I think that is, not that women shouldn't take them, or I'm against women taking them or anything like that, but it's just, I think they should think about it more because of what it does. I mean, there's a lot of male characteristics that kind of come along with it. And it's something that should be just taken very, very seriously.
And in your opinion, like, just because there are younger guys that are actually listening to this, and if you are considering that, that's not a problem, but shouldn't an individual wait until, I guess, their hormones get to a normal level? They're not still developing. They're not still changing to add in these things.
Because I can't see a reason to take them when you're a teenager.
Or even 20, 21, like you're still growing at that point. Like you need to give yourself more time, right?
I would say
25 when you started.
I would say even try to wait till 30, but I was already lifting for a long time. And I just, again, I thought I was kind of at the end of the line in terms of what I was able to do, but I certainly wasn't, I realize that now, but my mindset is so different now too. So yeah, you should definitely, just think to yourself, if you're listening right now and you're 20 years old, and you're thinking about it, can you be bigger and can you be leaner? Like, are you working that hard for it without them? And you can probably honestly answer the question and say, oh yeah, I still got room. I still got room. I just need to figure this out. I need to be diligent with my sleep and with my training. And you might have to go really, really far on everything. You might have to have a training journal. You might have to write down what you eat every single day. I mean, you might have to be crazy meticulous, but can you do it? The answer is probably yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me ask you this, because like we were talking about this before the show too. You did your bodybuilding show. You mentioned that you were lighter at that time, but you also didn't feel as good when you were lean. I want to get back to the topic of staying lean, right? You didn't feel that good at that point when you were lean, but now you look at your pictures, you're pretty damn lean and you feel pretty great. This is something that you could do. Do you feel that the habits that you have right now are consistent? And like you could do this consistently without breaking yourself or without Andy getting mad at your mood or whatever?
Right. On a scale of 1 to 10, like the difficulty level of this is like right smack dab in the middle, probably. It's like a 5 or a 6. It's not that hard. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty good amount of walking, which is like just, but I like walking, and I have increased that a little bit over the last like maybe 3 months. I've done a handful of cardio sessions, so I can't really give any credit to cardio because I just didn't do that many, but I did do some. I did about maybe like 10 sessions in the last month. So there was something there, but it's just I lift every day and I'm pretty rigorous with my nutrition, but I'm not crazy about it. I'm not completely nutty about it. If somebody else tried to do what I was doing, they would say, hey, you're nuts. Like what you're doing is nuts, because they're just not used to it. Yeah. But I utilize like a protein sparing fast every day, which is simply just, I only rely on protein through most of the morning. And sometimes I finish my day the exact same way. So it's a protein like modified fast is what people will kind of refer to it as. Mm-hmm. There's really not other nutrients in there. There's very little fat and very little carbohydrate. And then, midday every day I have like meal number 1, which is usually an icon meal. So there's no meal prep involved in that. Meal number 2 is usually another icon meal. And meal number 3 is whatever Andy and I have for dinner. And I just kind of eat it. It almost, there's not really, every once in a while, we'll make something that's really not like on my menu, but I'll just cook up like a steak and then still eat whatever else we had, And so this is, I could do this forever. I feel amazing. I feel great. I feel pretty strong. You always kind of wish you're stronger, but I feel pretty strong. I'm able to deadlift, squat, and bench and do a lot of the things that I love to do. Yeah. I have a little bit of pain in both of my elbows, a small amount of pain in my knee, but those come and go always. They're kind of always there. I had some pain in all those spots when I was doing my bodybuilding show. Mm-hmm. And this is just way simpler than what I was doing for the bodybuilding show. And it doesn't, and this is all a big part of this is because of protein leveraging.
You're eating a high amount of protein, right?
It all started with me. If you guys remember a while back, I was like, I'm going to eat 400 grams of protein for a while. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I did that for about a month and it had a great impact. It actually helped me pack on some weight. And now I'm probably around 300 or something like that, just because 400 is fucking hard to do every single day. But I probably have, 100 grams of protein every day, or maybe even more like 150 from protein shakes, and then the other 150 comes from food, something like that, somewhere in there. But the protein leveraging made a big difference because it just prevents me from eating other stuff. I still eat carbs. I eat potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice. And then every once in a while, like even during this whole, even while I was prepping to do these photos this morning with Andrew, thank you, Andrew.
Looking crazy in those photos too.
Even when I was prepping for that, I'm still eating some legendary Pop-Tarts here and there. I'm still eating I'm not eating a ton of them, but I'm eating them. And normally if I was like, in bodybuilder mode, I'd be like, I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't have that. And there really hasn't been a lot of that.
What do you think would be the, it sounds like it's all fairly easy if it's at about a 5, But out of everything that you are doing, what do you think is the most, like the biggest challenge for you?
It just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel challenging. Each day when I lift, I try to just do one body part. So to talk myself into lifting isn't hard. I think if I was trying to like train chest and back at the same time in the workout, you know, like my workouts are long because once I get in there, I love it. And that's just the way it goes, but they're not intentionally long. Like in my head, I'm like, hey, 15 minutes would be great. And I did my first 15-minute workout in probably 3 years yesterday, but normally it doesn't go down that way. Normally I go in there and I'm in there for like 2 hours. I just have fun with it. I love it. I'm trying to think if there's been anything that's really been tough. I mean, I guess like getting up in the morning, like I'm early riser anyway, but I'm all snuggled in my bed and Andy's there and like that feels comfortable. And I wake up a little bit before her and I take off and I walk, I walk for like an hour a lot of times. And so that kind of sucks.
An hour.
Yeah. Usually I walk about an hour. And again, that doesn't, it's not really an intentional hour walk. I go and meet my dad and we walk and we probably walk for 15, 20 minutes. And then he usually goes on his way and I'm like, I'm going to keep going. I probably walk about 5 miles almost every day.
Damn.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah. Just cause like I was talking to everybody, like in comparison from when you did your show to this morning, you're not as, like it's
dry.
Thank you. You're not as dry, but when you did like your lat spread and when you just see like your abs and everything, like you're so much thicker, but not like, obviously there's like not a lot of fat there.
Right.
It looks, man, I would say like it might even look a little bit better just because you look bigger.
Right. Yeah. Stage sometimes can look weird.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So like stage ready bodybuilding is different than like looking good on the beach, right? Like it's a different look. And right now the look that you have it's freaking great. And to hear that it's, like you're doing it like just cruising almost.
It also is
cruising.
It's also blast and cruise. It's also a 5 though too, because of the mindset, like it,
totally. Yeah.
I built into it. So again, somebody else tries it. They're like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. And like, as I ask you, what's the most challenging? I understand that you don't see any of it as being a challenge.
I reject this challenge.
Yeah.
Balboa is no challenge. That's from Mr. T. Rocky 3.
I thought that was CT again.
It was so good.
In that video you pulled up. But yeah.
It's amazing. At Rocky 3, they ask Clubber Lang, Mr. T, they ask him, they say, are you prepared for Rocky Balboa's challenge? And he goes, I reject this challenge. Balboa is no challenge. And he just like takes off. Fucking God. Savage.
How's Mr. T doing anyway? I haven't heard much about him.
I have no idea.
Still alive?
I can get him on a podcast.
I can Google it.
We should get Mr. T.
Mr. T.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Back to this guy. So you were kind of talking about like being careful of like social media and stuff. So let me do this. So like if I seen the picture of this, what's his name?
Sam.
So right here, in my opinion, yeah, he looks definitely natty.
Look at those fucking arms.
He looks massive. Okay, that looks
but when
great.
you say he looks natty, you see like why do you think he looks natty? Because most people would say he doesn't.
I'll show you why. Because when I see this picture, let me find it. Oh, come on, find it. Oh, here we go. Here I'd be like, I don't know, because all these veins and how straight everything else is.
Yeah,
that he didn't have this in the other picture.
But he's also doing a totally different pose.
Right.
But what I'm saying is be careful of the social media aspect of it all.
Okay.
Like people are going to see this and think he looks like this all the time.
Yeah, it's one picture from one angle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of more like adding to what you were saying earlier about like don't fall into the social media traps.
Yeah, it's you could do certain poses that just make you look crazy. But if I just stand right here in the podcast or just put my hand down, I look pretty natty.
That vein.
Anyway, but no, you're totally right. And like, I mean, one thing to mention is that like, a lot of people just take a lot of pictures and recycle them. Sometimes some of those people don't look like that, but back to what we were saying about being lean year round, it is possible. Mark's doing it right now. I think do you think that one of the big things that's allowing you to also do this is you're doing a protein sparing fast, but I in line with you in the fact that when I started utilizing some fasting, which helped me contain my appetite a little bit better, which helped me not get as hungry as often. And when I eat, I don't need to eat exorbitant amounts of food. I don't now have the urge or the cravings that I used to have.
Yeah, the protein stuff was huge because it just pushes down the hunger and the cravings. But fasting does the same thing.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but if you work on fasting, then it can be a great tool. I urge everyone to try and mess around with some fasting here and there. And I don't know, just maybe, implement it twice a week or something for 12, 14 hours. Just give it a shot. Your body should know what it feels like to be hungry. There's certain decisions that I try to make each day that are different than what I used to do. So a lot of times, and I'll still do this from time to time, but I do a lot less. Sometimes I'm like if I eat, it's going to take me 15, 20 minutes to eat. Then it's going to take me like 10, 15 to even feel like I want to work out, because I don't want to really necessarily work out right after I eat. So I used to not eat and I used to just train. Now I'm like, well, you really need that food. You kind of need those nutrients, and I'm not a pussy about it. I'm not like, I didn't eat any carbs and I'm not going to like be able to lift. I don't think that way at all. But I recognize I need those nutrients so I feel better later on in the day. And so I feel better a day or two later or 3 days later. I think the human body works a lot differently than what we understand or what you hear preached. I think you got like a 2 or 3 day delay on what's going on, because you think about how long it takes for the food to like actually hit you and to assimilate, and for the food to actually become like one with you, for it to become like part of your body, basically. I'm sure it fucking takes a while. And so if it's Monday and you start to, you train like crazy, you do legs, you have a crazy leg day, you have a long day at work, shit's going down with like some family shit too, right? You get through Monday and you're like, well, it was a pretty rough day, but it wasn't too bad. And you get through the Monday, and Tuesday rolls around and you find yourself making a little bit worse decisions with your food. Mm-hmm. You couldn't sleep that good on Monday because everything else was kind of jacked up. Well, now it's Wednesday and now you're fucked.
Yeah.
And now you're probably going to cheat on your diet because it's going to be, you're just kind of behind on a bunch of stuff. You're stressed. You just want to you want something to be good. So you're like, I'm just going to eat some bullshit food.
Yeah.
And that will help. And it does. And when you have it, it feels great. It tastes great. Hits all your receptors, your dopamine receptors. Things are pinging in your head. You're like, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of in that vicious cycle now, because now you're disappointed in yourself. You're like, I shouldn't have fucking done that. Mm-hmm. And if you just would have eaten when you were supposed to eat and supply yourself with the nutrients that you should have, you could probably avoid a lot of that, because you probably won't be as impacted from whatever stresses are outside. In addition to that, if you work on some fasting, you might find it beneficial in the same way, because you're teaching your body to be more comfortable with being hungry, so that on Wednesday, when those situations come up and you're hangry and you're like, I'm not really that hungry. Shit ain't really that bad. I got a fucking refrigerator full of food. I'm straight. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it through it.
Yeah. Like a few years ago, exactly. I wouldn't have felt that I could actually get a good workout without having a meal 2 hours before, because for 24 years before that, it was religious that I would eat 2 hours before my workout. And if I didn't, I would be a bitch about it. I would get in the gym and I'd just be like, oh, I feel so weak. It's because I didn't have my carbs 2 hours ago. Like I
didn't have my pre-workout.
Didn't have my pre-workout, didn't have my carbs, didn't have my meal. But like now I'm going to eat tonight, probably going to have a meal later. And then tonight I'm going to go through, I'm going to do all my workouts tomorrow. And I'm going to feel great, because I realize that it's not actually, I don't feel it's that important. You know what I mean? And if we were to draw some blood, your blood glucose levels wouldn't be trend.
Well, trend would go spouting everywhere. Your blood glucose levels wouldn't be zero. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have carbs in your system, like literally running through your veins, pretty much at all time. Well, at all times, yeah, regardless of what diet you're on. Even people that are on a low carbohydrate diet, their body will eventually start to make more carbohydrates to keep your glucose. Your body will make it for you. You'll start to make glucose, and you'll you'll always have a steady stream of glucose running through your body unless you're dead.
Yeah.
So, I think that a lot of times that stuff's mental, that having that pre-workout or having that thing, right before your training session. What I have found for me to be true is once I warm up, I kind of even forget like what I did or didn't do before, I kind of forget about whether I had that meal or not. And there's going to be days too where you just need to audible with your workout.
Yeah.
Like maybe you didn't eat the way that you should have. Maybe you missed a meal the night before. Maybe you're just really fucking hungry. Maybe you're really tired. I don't know. But that's where you have to make a decision. This is why I don't love to always follow like I personally don't follow any programming, but I don't recommend even for people to really stick to their guns on their programming. I think that sometimes you got to say, and you got to be, experienced enough to be able to make that call, but just do something different.
Yeah.
Just get a stimulus with the weights and have fun.
Yeah. And I've heard you in the past. I don't even remember if it was a podcast you were on or if it was this one about like tracking the weights, like you're tracking your workout and how people are tracking the wrong thing. And it should be more of how you felt that day as opposed to what you lifted. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah. So like, for example, can you do like a lat pull down and a seated row, and curls and some of these accessory assistance exercises, really any of the exercises? Can you use the same weight all the time and still get better? I think people would say no, but I disagree. I think that you can. I think the way that you do the exercises matters a lot. I think the rest interval matters a lot. And so I think that, keeping track of the weight, it can be important. But you're really looking at the overall amount of work that you did and the work and it in terms of time as well, the density of the workout. Those things are important. You don't want to go racing around through your workout, but we see Josh Bryant do this a lot with a lot of the workouts that Sully does, where he's like got a minute and 15 seconds before his like next set. And he's really diligent with it. And it looks like he's doing the most brutal stuff. I mean, if you're going to keep track of stuff, I think you're better off trying to keep track of, number one, some of the things where you're not good at. You're not good at pull-ups, and that's a great thing to track and to start to pay attention to. And then number two would be like, just paying attention to your conditioning. Like how's your conditioning? How do you feel, when you did 5 sets of 10 of that exercise, were you able to complete all 10 reps? I think those are the areas that I would keep track of. I don't think it's unnecessary maybe to write down everything, but if you want to, I guess, have at it. From a strength perspective, it can be even more important to be able to have some wiggle room with what you do with your weights and how you and what you write down and things like that. Because I did a conjugate system style stuff, and for that, it's like I didn't really have to write down any of it, but it was weird because I would go and I remember when I did write it down, there was a period of time where I did write it down where I felt like this is necessary for me to get stronger. Or I didn't write it down. Maybe I posted it somewhere. And I remember being like, fuck yeah, that was a PR. That was sick. I felt amazing. I check on my phone and I look it up and it wasn't 40 pounds shy of like a PR, right? Or whatever it was, And I'm like, God damn. But like, it's the Russians who had created this conjugate system. They just said, hey, it's a daily max. It's whatever you get to on that day. That's important. Forget about what you did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, because it's not that time. It's a different time. Amongst regular people that aren't professional lifters, it's not your job to lift weights. And so therefore, the weight is going to feel way different on certain days for many, many different reasons, because you don't have time to just only lift.
Yeah. No, that's what you mentioned there. I agree with. Okay, this is where I agree, and then this is where I maybe think a little bit differently. I agree with the fact that lifters need to allow themselves some wiggle room, like especially what it's easy. And I used to get caught into, if I had this programmed, I have to do everything that's programmed. No matter how I'm feeling, I have to do everything that's programmed on this day. And some days it probably wasn't the best idea because maybe I didn't get enough quality sleep the night before. Maybe I stressed myself out the whole day with certain things I was doing. I just wasn't feeling that great that day. But because it was on the program, I did it and I felt like shit. Right. So lifters need to allow themselves that wiggle room. But I think that also it takes, like you said, it takes experience to get there. It takes experience to say, okay, I'm supposed to squat 405, but today my warm up of 350 felt like 405. So maybe I shouldn't try to put 405 on that bar. That takes experience, which is why I think that it is beneficial to write some of these things down, but have a method of gauging how you're going to feel that day. You do that when you're lifting. Like I've seen you do certain sets to feel how you feel. Right. So you could figure out, am I going to bench this much today? Am I going to squat this much today? You do that because then if your warm-ups are feeling great, you know, you can push it.
Sometimes I might do 2 or 3 sets of the same weight, which I don't usually see that many people do, but like just with a plate or 2 plates, sometimes it's good to do it for 3 and be like, wow, okay, that really felt like shit. Let me just double check and make sure it really felt like shit. Okay, it really felt like shit. Okay, today is going to be a different kind of day.
Yeah, exactly. So, because again, if a new lifter just goes based off what the program's saying and they just try to, push through all the discomfort and pain they're feeling that day, they're going to hurt themselves.
It's tough because these things, they do need to be forced in a way, but if you're going for aesthetics and going for kind of just a look, I think you can forever pull, do a lat pull down with pretty much the same weight. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the switching up that you do maybe is some different handles and some different reps and things like that. But when it comes to the powerlifting side of things, there are things that unfortunately you kind of have to force them. You have to go to that kind of outer edge. But again, we've talked so many times about strength, the percentage that you actually need to get stronger is lower than 100%. So that's important to always keep in mind. And what I see, and the reason why sometimes I'm against it, and the reason why maybe the message gets confused is I often see lifters just using too much weight.
Yeah.
And I think that whatever the coach had intended for them, they had these well-meaning intentions of this athlete using 78% after they did, some of their main sets or whatever. And it's like these they don't look that good. They're not controlled. Like you're shaking a lot. It just looks like you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And I don't think your coach, I don't think he meant that. And I don't think he wants you to get hurt. So let's just pull off 5% weight or just 15 pounds or something, pull some weight off there. If that feels better and starts to move good again, then you can make a decision on whether you want to go back to it. But I've done stuff like that with Sully and with Smokey and with a bunch of guys in the gym where I'm like, I'll always encourage everyone to go up in weight and see what you can do and all that shit. But every once in a while I'm like, hey, let's just take some of this weight off and let's see what happens when we do it the right way.
Yeah, I remember when I was at the old gym when I was working on my deadlift and you had me change something, but you're like, let's take some 45s off the bar. I was like, yeah, well, yeah, let's take some 45s off the bar, right? But that's what helped me to build the technique to be able to deadlift a heavier weight later. It's what you got to do, and it's no matter if you're getting stronger, but if you're getting bigger too, if there's a load you're working with on those lat pull downs that everything just looks messy and it's not good and you're not doing it with good form, take some fucking weight off the stack.
So right now you personally could probably weigh 15 or 20 pounds more and be a lot bigger and thicker, right? You potentially could deadlift maybe 50 more pounds than what you can deadlift now, or maybe even more. Yeah.
If I was heavy, yeah.
Yeah. In just a few months, right? And everyone could always be leaner. So you could certainly be leaner and just look ridiculous.
Yeah.
In 3 months or so.
Yeah.
Right. My point is that you're not all those things right now, even though you appear to be all those things to people. You're still not at your strongest. You're still not at your leanest. You're still not at your absolute best, but you're close to all of them. That's the fucking key. And that's a lot of what we're talking about here today is this idea of trying to stay lean year round can be really difficult. But if you can find the right groove, then you have sort of found the right path. And that's what I felt so good about doing this photo shoot today, is I really felt great about it, because it didn't feel like I had to do anything wild or crazy. Even though it, does take dedication, it does take time. I'm not going to lie. Like, I spent a lot of hours in the gym. Like, I spent a lot of time there, just what I love to do. So I'm not going to be like, hey, I did it in 30 minutes or whatever. But I found my groove. And something I was thinking about the other day, and I'll use this shaker cup as an example that you used earlier. It's not for the same thing. When you try to screw something on, a shaker cup lid or whatever, for those who are just listening, how do you like thread it? How do you get a screw or a washer or bolt or whatever it is? How do you get that thing like threaded usually? And a lot of times it starts out by like, when it's crooked, right? Mm-hmm. And what do you usually do?
Go the opposite.
You go the opposite way, right? And why do you go the opposite way? It's so that you can find your groove. Like, you sometimes need to go a way that you wouldn't even think of in order to like get on track. And then you do the same thing with what? You do the same thing with MapQuest, right? You got you're trying to use the map, and you're like, I don't know fucking way it's telling me to go out of this parking lot. Yeah. I'm going to go left. You're like, fuck, I went wrong way. Like, you learn right away. And that goes back to what we...
For a MapQuest.
Well...
That goes, or Waze or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That goes back to, that failing fast idea, right?
Yeah.
You kind of need to fail quickly to learn. And there's people that want to be, bigger and more jacked in your training. You're going to have to go the wrong way for a minute with your nutrition. You're going to have to go the wrong way for a minute just to kind of recalibrate yourself so you can head in the right direction.
Yeah.
I love that analogy, but also every time I will turn the wrong way, be like, son of a... And then it'll tell you to go like 18 miles this way because it doesn't want you to make an illegal U-turn.
Right.
On,
yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Like,
it reroutes
just
you.
ask me if nobody's looking, then yeah. But no, that's cool.
I should tell you there's no cops around.
You're all good to go. That's Waze.
That was a Confucius level analogy.
It was.
Like you got
Yoda style.
Yeah, that was great. That makes a lot of sense.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, it was like a mind bullet moment. I didn't have any mind bullet, but it was a mind bullet moment where I'm like screwing this lid on. And I'm like, man, this is so stupid. I have to go the opposite way just to thread this just to get it in the right groove. And then, I was like, that's actually great. It's actually a good analogy for stuff.
Yeah. I know how long we have, but I want people to kind of really get what you're saying here, or, kind of understand your process to getting where you are now, because you got up to like 3 something or 320.
Yeah, 330. Yep.
330, right? Let's say like mark at 270, mark at 280. How would you feel? What would your struggles be in terms of doing what you're doing now? Because you didn't make all those adjustments at once. You were doing certain things slowly, failing and recalibrating. But how would you have responded to this protein leveraging, to the frequency of your eating, to all of this? How would you have been able to handle that? Or would you have been able to at that point?
First of all, I probably wouldn't have believed it. If you were like, hey, this is the way it works. If you just stuff yourself with protein, you won't be as hungry for other stuff, and you can still have some room to eat some other crap here and there. Not that I eat crap, but like just still have a little freedom with the diet, right? I probably wouldn't have really believed it, but it would have been really difficult because at that time, I'd still wake up in the middle of the night and want to eat something.
And you would eat something.
And I would, yeah. And so I got better at it, and that's how I was able to lose weight, but I still wasn't always able to rein it in. And then like with just my overall perspective on food and dieting just wasn't great. Like I would be like, I'm just going to have, I was good for 4 days, so I'm going to have a cheat meal, and then it just was never a cheat meal. It was never responsible, it was always out of control. Every single time it was like out of control. I'd have some pizza, and I was like, it'll just end with some pizza. Then on the way home, I'd stop at the grocery store and I'd get a bunch of candy and shit. And it would just, it was like embarrassing to buy that much candy at the grocery store. And they're like, what the fuck's this guy? What the fuck's this jacked fat guy doing with all this candy? So it would have been difficult to implement that. The walking was reasonable because I started walking a pretty long time ago. So that's something that's real easy to recommend to anybody. But again, I think with people that are big and people that are really having a tough time with it and tough go of it, because diets have never been their friend, stuff yourself with food, and not even necessarily just protein, but stuff yourself with nutritious whole foods. Start there. If you're not making any progress, see where you can cut back a little bit. Try to do your best to stay away from combinations of food that will make it super easy to overeat. I think a lot of people should be able to maintain A, their weight loss, and B, a lean body year round. But at the same time, I would say, when we spoke about it off air for a minute, is I don't even think it's that smart to try to be like we mentioned earlier, like you're not at your absolute strongest. Why aren't you at your absolute strongest? Because it's going to pull away from your jiu-jitsu. It's going to take too much time in there. You could potentially get hurt. That's not where your interest is at. That's not where your focus is at. Why aren't you completely, shredded in 3% body fat instead of 5 or whatever the hell you are? Same thing. It's going to pull away from your jiu-jitsu. It doesn't make sense. So people, when they're trying to stay in good shape year round, it should only represent a certain, for the most part, unless they're getting on stage, it should only represent a certain level of, or a certain percentage of their best. It shouldn't necessarily be that they're at 100 unless, again, they're on stage. What's the, is there a good reason for it? Maybe you do that once or twice a year, but to ask yourself to do that, Ed Cohn, I think, competed like twice a year. And when I was coming up through powerlifting, as I got to know him, he's like, a lot of these guys, they compete way too much. It's great that they get their feet wet, they get on the platform, they get the experience. He's like, but they're competing every other month. He's like, I used to compete twice a year.
Yeah.
And he was able to, his point was he was able to prep. And that's what we talked about earlier when we were talking about bulking and cutting and going back between those two things. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme. It's just like, maybe you have a time where your food is just different for a while so that you can enjoy food, so you can have some drinks, so that you can be more social. I think Christian Guzman does this. He's not really like a bulker. You know what I mean? He just makes sure that he doesn't gain a lot of weight. He'll go off the diet. He'll look a little smoother. He always looks great. He'll look a little smoother for a while, and then he'll get shredded again. And so, you can make your own decision on how far you want to take that. But if you're trying to be lean for, all the time, it might be to your detriment. It might not be the best move, because you might be compromising your strength, compromising your muscle, and also compromising kind of down the road your body working for you, rather than you having to put so much work in to get your body to head in the right direction.
And that's one of those big things. It's like it takes you a long time to get to this place where you're at now, to build all the habits that you have now. Like you mentioned, Christian, there was in the past, before he was where he is right now, like when he would try to get bigger, it's not like he was fat, but he'd put on more body fat than he would want to put on at this point in time. Like even the pictures that you've seen where he has he's a little smooth, he put on a little bit more fat than that when he was earlier, when he didn't lift for as long, because he needed to develop. Now, I'm not saying that you need to get to 20% body fat or anything, but in your earlier stages of your lifting, you might get to, maybe your upper level is 17%, right? But when you do that and you are able to put on a good amount of size, maybe you don't ever have to get that big again. And there's also the things that happened when you get lean, or when you get pretty damn lean and you gain weight again, your body fat, the way your body fat distributes around your body changes substantially. It becomes more even the next time you get bigger. I see that all the time. That happened with me. Like you'll get bigger, but now for some reason you see lines in your legs when you're bigger. Right. That and for some reason you're
oh yeah, we've talked about that before. Just
your body fat distribution.
And over time too, you're just gonna get, if you keep training and you keep supplying yourself with the nutrients, you're just gonna, like, maybe not necessarily be a lot like lighter or anything, or be a ton leaner. You'll look leaner. Like your triceps will look better. Your legs will look better. Like some things they'll look a little bit better. I just want people to kind of ponder some of this, before we end the show for today. But like, there's a lot of really, really talented lifters out there. And powerlifters that get tested. You can't forget about the CrossFitters, right? You can't forget about how strong some of these men and women are and how they look, the physiques that they have. Don't sell yourself short and just be like, oh man, he's on tons of shit. Look at Ray Williams. You know, I think Ray's best squat so far is 1,080. He squatted the same weight that I squatted, but he squatted it deeper. He squatted it with no powerlifting gear. What I was wearing was a squat suit. Underneath the squat suit is briefs. I got a belt on and knee wrap. So he wears a belt and he wears knee sleeves. How much are knee sleeves helping? Let's just say knee sleeves help by 30 pounds or whatever, right? They don't really do much. But I had knee wraps on and a suit that probably helped me by like 200 pounds. I don't have any problem being honest with that. Ray Williams is a better lifter than I could ever possibly imagine being. He's one of the all-time greats, one of the strongest powerlifters ever walked the face of the earth. I love Big Ray. And he's a guy that gets tested frequently. And I know like people are like, oh, well, he's probably gonna, okay, that's fine. But what about the guy behind him? And what about, what about the guy behind him that squatted 8 or whatever? What about, Bryce Lewis? And what about there's this bunch of savages out there. And there are Russ Swole we talk a lot about, right? Like what's the deal with these guys? It's just more proof, and it should be encouraging to everyone that everyone that's stuck and they're like, I need to get on a bunch of shit because that's the road to success. That's the only way I'm going to be able to make it. Mark Bell did it. Arnold did it. I'm going to do it, or whatever the conversation is that you have with yourself. You don't necessarily have to. There's a lot of people who have achieved some amazing things. How is it that I know that Ray Williams is a lot bigger, but he's a huge individual. Yeah. I know that Big Ray is bigger, but how is it that he's able to lift that weight, right? Like he's able to put that much weight on his fucking back and squat it, or is able to deadlift that much weight at the end. It's a lot of work that he put in over a long period of time. He was patient and he figured out a way to do it. Mike O'Hearn is somebody that everyone's always questioning, right? Like, is he natty? Is he not? Again, let's just look at, let's say that you wanted to be built like Michael Hearn and you're like, I don't really care anymore about whether he does stuff or not, because we don't have any way of knowing unless we were to flat out just ask him or search his house or something. I don't know. But if you wanted to look like him, all you need to do is to apply a lot of the disciplines that he has every day, and you would be more likely to start looking like him eventually. Are you going to look exactly like him? Well, he's 6'2" or 6'3". He's like 260. He's a big person. His arms are over 20 inches, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, his arms are. I mean, he's a massive guy. But you want to take those main core principles that people have, and that's what you want to really look at. I think that's where your focus should be. And let's say that you do all those things, and you're like, "Fuck, man, I look nothing like him." Well, then maybe that's a time when you're an adult and when you can make that decision for yourself. Maybe that's a time you start to think about utilizing some other methods. But again, no one can tell you how far you can push all this stuff. And I think that these natty or not videos, they kind of put like a limit. They put a little bit of a ceiling on a lot of that for a lot of people.
They absolutely do.
I notice Andrew didn't say shit because he's on so much stuff over there.
Well, I'm just laughing at this new string of names for Nsima, which is leaner, meaner, and seamer.
Leaner, meaner, and seamer.
I like it.
I love it.
Who came up with that?
I gotta go back up and check because I don't want to mess up. Oh, come on! I went too far now. But no, the live chat today has been on fire. So shout out to everybody in the chat room today.
Hello, people.
Yeah,
glad you guys are here.
I'm not gonna find it.
Yeah.
Oh, it might have been our boy Matthew.
Balcom?
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Balcom. I love his name. Matthew Balcom.
That's our boy. Everyone's cracking up with that name. That's dope.
What?
Leaner,
meaner, and seamer.
I think we used to call Nsima. Like a Lasker. Nsima.
Yeah.
What?
You just add an R.
Some people kind of throw an R at the end. Actually, a lot of times it's British people.
Dangerous territory.
Yeah, Jasmine will pretend to have an accent.
Nseamer.
Yeah.
Well, I was going somewhere else. But
And Sweener?
Hard R. Don't give me my name with the hard R. Nsima. Okay.
What was that?
Oh God.
Hey, where can we find this guy that had this going on?
Oh, I'm not going to put his name out there like that. I don't think he wants all his stuff out there.
Put his IG. Let's just throw his IG handle.
Is he the one that got compared to a Lysol can, or is that someone else?
Lysol can.
I'll have to tell you off air, but I think that could have been the same
Andrew
guy.
can't stop thinking about it.
Maybe it could have been the same person. Maybe it could have been the same
Yeah, I haven't
person.
stopped looking at that shaker cup this whole fucking episode. I was like,
Just kind
that?
of drooling a little bit.
Well, that and then just remembering about that guy Horsecock. That would lift off.
Oh God.
Yeah, you could see his shit right through his
cargo shorts.
Shorts. Yeah, that guy was a stud.
He probably couldn't wear normal shorts.
No,
He had to wear something to try to like distract you from that hog.
I remember asking Scott Mendelson. I was like, because this guy was just like a big person anyway, huge arms and stuff like that. And I remember asking Mendelson, I'm like, that guy's super nice. He always helps me and my brother. I'm like, but what's his deal? And he's like, his deal? I was like, well, like, does he have something like, there's something wrong with him? He goes, some people might think he's got something wrong with him. And I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, there's just like, I can't tell what's in his pants. It's like, it looks like a fucking football in there or something.
Oh my God.
He's like, Mark. He's like, he just has a huge cock. He's like, you need to get past it. I was like, I can't. I didn't know if he had like a blown up ball or something, or, if his nuts were swollen or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh man. God just chose to give some people some different types of gifts. Mm-hmm. And for this guy, he just chose to sprinkle a lot of cock.
Yeah.
He sprinkled it.
Took a handful and just dumped it in the bowl.
Yep.
Like when you're trying to pour out something and it's just like,
bowl.
Shit, it all
You
came
just
out.
actually poured too much.
That's a show, guys.
I feel like it. Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to end with horsecock all the time.
That's the best way to end these shows, with dick.
It's embarrassing. The show is pretty embarrassing sometimes. Like when we have certain guests on that are like really, like they got great credentials, and we end up starting to talk about assholes or dicks or.
It's like when they leave, that's the end of the episode. We just.
Well, like if we see any relatives over the holidays, like what's your podcast about?
Oh, dude.
Talk to doctors and talk about people's gigantic penises.
I remember when I first started the show, my dad was like, he's like, you cuss a lot.
Oh, okay.
He's like, you cuss a lot. And I was like, I do. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'll try to cut back. And I would listen to it. I'm like, yeah, man, I do curse a lot. I'm just doing it all the time. And he was like, you need to he's like, see if you can just cut back on it at least, So I did try, but I don't know if I'm successful or not.
Yeah, I've sent my mom certain episodes. And then like,
why are you talking that way?
She messaged me. She's like, Nsima, I heard you say something. I was like, oh no, fuck, I forgot. So now I'm like, I know which ones I can send her, which ones like I can't.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
All righty. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode, especially everybody in the live chat. You guys are freaking awesome. Really appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed, we're extremely close to 50,000 subscribers, so please help us get there. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already, and then while you're at it, just hit that bell notification so that way you guys don't miss one of these live streams again. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. And again, if you haven't subscribed already to the newsletter, please do so now. Links will be down in the YouTube and Facebook description, as well as the podcast show notes. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. If you guys want to hang out on Twitter, it's at I am Andrew Z as well. And Nsima, where are you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on Twitter. Mark.
I'm at Mark Spilly Bell. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. And big shout out to my boy Andrew. Thank you so much for the photo shoot today. That was freaking awesome.
I had a blast, and sorry I got through almost all of them. I wanted to show them on air today, but I just ran out of time. But yeah, they'll be ready by probably tonight.
Andrew, he can't handle like not having it perfect, so he's got to keep messing with it.
They'll be fine.
We're out of here. Catch you guys later.